Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Worrall. I'm joined today by Mr. Ian Macbeth. How are you, mate?
I'm good. I'm charged. I'm ready for this episode. Great guest. Good topic. The market. I mean, geez, we are in that week, aren't we? Before the stamp duty change, everyone's pipelines. I mean, people going to get paid over the next week. There's going to be some commission knocking around. So I spoke to a few agents. You know, record months, record quarters, knocking around everywhere. And then it's just, what do you do after that? I've got a meeting, a 2-hour Zoom workshop booked in with my lot to kind of talk about what comes next. And I think we're doing that on the 3rd of April, just to make sure that everyone's in the right place. So, yeah, but it's going to be exciting. I mean, the amount of completions, you know, that's going out. There's a lot of Alan the Avocado key rings going around at the moment. So, yeah, that's the theme. What about you?
Yeah, there's a lot of commission floating about, but there is also a lot of stress as well, isn't there? I spent most of my Friday afternoon into the evening trying to sort out one particular chain, and that isn't even one of our sales, just part of the wider team. But I had to do someone a favour, and we resolved it. But these deadlines help us push the sales through. But my God, they don't half create some pressure.
Yeah.
Like,
I always feel sorry, or I always look at the removal companies in this situation, because unless it's exchanged, like, they can't get it in their diary, but then a client wants it in the diary 2 months before, but then it could not happen. And they're constantly crossing out where that is the hardest thing for me around these stamp duty changes, is those removal companies.
So one of my clients rang me on maybe the 2nd of March or something like that, and he was like, "Mark, can you propose the date of the 21st of March for completion?" I was like, "Right, yeah, of course I can." Why? He said, "It's the only date the removal's got, and they'll only hold it for me for 2 days." And anyway, we missed it, but that was he was pretty prepared for it. But these removal guys are like just running around, and then they'll have one day where they just got nothing to do. So yeah. I agree. I feel sorry for them.
I spoke to a couple of solicitors as well. There's Sims sat there. There's a lot of Sims sat there that haven't exchanged, that aren't going to exchange, that Friday or Monday are going simultaneous.
Yeah.
And that's just going to, cause carnage, those Sims.
I do feel for the solicitors at the moment. I've spoken to a couple and they sound like loaded, like serious. You can imagine, like we take some of the stress, but really our job post-completion is done, and it's about trying to sort problems and push it along. The solicitor's job, that's all that they do in that process. And whilst we can criticize the process and how maybe they don't work at the speed that they do right now, they're going to be under the cosh. It's going to be a bit of a week from hell for solicitors, to be fair.
Yeah, I think agents that haven't sort of ruled out the majority of their Thursday, Friday, Monday, in their diaries, and sort of no new business, for example, no viewings, unless it's sort of after hours. You could do something at 5 o'clock because solicitors are closed. But I think a bit of diary management, we've spoken about it in a recent podcast, but that's the foresight, isn't it? Is you really want to have your diary ruled out Thursday, Friday, Monday, just to make sure you can do your new business Saturday and in the evenings, but just make sure you're there for your clients. And
Shaun, a massive thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
I was just saying off air, I thought you'd been on more than once. We did a joint episode a few years back, but you think this is your first individual appearance. So looking forward to some bombs from the implementer, as they used to call him in Mastermind. But let's start with the same question that we always start with, Shaun. It's, what does world-class real estate look like to you in 2025?
So for me, it's obviously what's best for clients, what's best for seller and buyer. And they expect honesty. The seller would expect to get the best price and within a reasonable time. And I think communication, that's what it's like for me. Same things as it's probably always should have been.
As Mark sneezes.
Sure.
Yeah, getting the best price. Do you know, this is the statistic which blew my mind when I was kind of looking at last year's data, is that even last year in a really busy market, only 63% of properties that went on the market completed. So 6 out of 10 people that came to the market were happy. 4 out of 10 were disappointed. So even if you put getting the best price to one side, actually achieving the goal when you list your property, 37% to be precise, of people are left disappointed, which is mind-boggling, really. The public don't see that. They just assume you put it on and you're going to sell. It's just at what price, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah, and they don't think they're ever going to have a fall through or anything like that. And is that with the first agent, or is that with all agents?
That's just listing in general. So it could sell with any agent, but if it's come on the market, 37% of those listings in 2024 did not achieve completion.
Yeah, that's bad, isn't it?
It's pretty bad.
Insane.
Yeah. And it has been across the decade, the average is only just over 50%. So if you take it on a 10-year kind of context and say, right, it averages itself out, it's about 50-50, which is even worse.
Imagine 37% of people going into Tesco's come out with nothing in their hands.
Do you know what's also, I mean, we talk about the public, but what's also scary is it means estate agents do about half the work for free and don't get paid as well.
Yeah. And I think that's why there's more looking at this blended fee option.
Yeah, taking something up front so that there's some sort of reward for the effort and the energy that goes into it, I guess.
Yeah, and it will help out the people that do sell, because their fees could be lowered slightly if the agents are getting the same amount of money from everyone, wouldn't it?
So what do you think on that then, Shaun? You talked about getting the best price for clients, and we're now talking about actually just achieving a sale for clients. Do you think that is more on the agents or more on the clients? Really, best price and selling, we're talking probably a fair bit about overvaluing, I would imagine. But what do you think are some of the problems in the market? Because actually your answer to world-class real estate, honesty, communication, those are fairly straightforward things. They should be things that all estate agents can do. But clearly, as an industry, generally, we can tend to fall short in at least 37% of the times, as Ian said. Where do you think we go wrong, and how do you think we can improve it as an industry?
I think that the real difficulty is, as you say, with overvaluing, is that when you're sitting in front of people, and there are so many people that love the highest valuations, and if those agents that are giving those high valuations are giving sincerity and conviction, even though it's false, that's it. And unfortunately, with humans, it's greed, and they would tend to believe that. And as we all know, the highest price is the price that's probably the best offers you get in the first sort of 3 weeks, isn't it? Yeah. Now, if one agent knows that it's going to sell for 100 grand, and another one says, "Look, I can get you 120," and in the end, after months being on the market, the best they get is 85 grand. That's where it all goes wrong, isn't it? And we all know that happens. And I think by saying, agents shouldn't overvalue and that sort of thing, they've always done it, and I think it's really, really difficult because those agents aren't confident in their own abilities to explain why they've arrived at that price, and people often don't believe it, do they?
So you've got a good size agency, number of offices, and quite a big team. How do you bring the team in to try and avoid that overvaluing then? And how do you try and train and coach them so that you are listing properties at the right sort of price?
It's very difficult. And I think sometimes when they go into a property and they start talking about what price it should be, and the owner says, "Well, can you try a little bit more?" I think there's so many agents that say, "Well, we can try it, but maybe after a week or 2 weeks, or if we try it off market, we've got to bring that price down to the price I've suggested." And then quite often that doesn't happen. So I think with the best will in the world, that all agents would love to get it on at exactly the right price. And sometimes they give the right indication on price of what they really truly feel that someone could get, and another agent does overprice it, and in the end it sells at the full price that the other agent overvalues it at. That happens sometimes. Not so much now, but in a rising market, definitely. And also in a rising market, if it is pitched a bit too high, after sort of 2, 3, 4 weeks, price is starting to catch up with it, and then it sells, doesn't it? So car dealers have got a glasses guide, and they stick to that glasses guide, don't they? And that glasses guide, I don't know if they're published every month, do they? And that monitors the sort of supply and demand for those sort of cars. and they use that. They say, look, this is what the book price is, and there's no point in me going off it. And other car dealers say, yeah, this is so they trust the book price, don't they? So, but we haven't got a glasses guide.
With shared ownership, if you market a shared ownership property after the shared ownership have had their 8, 10, 12 weeks, the price is set by a surveyor prior. And I actually wonder whether, I think there's two ways that ultimately we fix this problem, which will never happen, but the only two ways I can see it being the case is, one, pre-market survey. So, much like we spoke about Sam in Australia, we've got a lot of clients doing it in certain areas at the moment, but you spend £400-500 on a pre-market survey. The surveyor tells you everything that is wrong with the property prior to market and prices it. So the price is set. Excuse me. It could almost be that price is then negotiated on by the buyer. The buyer might say, well, I'll give you 10 grand less or 10 grand more, but the agent doesn't set the price. The price is preset before estate agents come in and effectively pitch for the business without using the price as a manipulation tool. And the second way that potentially it could happen, which maybe is more realistic, is you're not allowed to price on the valuation face to face. So estate agents go out, they look at the property, they share with what's going on with the market, they talk about their marketing strategy, they pitch for the business, and then the price has to be submitted in an email or a letter afterwards. So again, there's not a sales pitch around the price, and people can leave and have time to digest what they think it's worth, because most agents want to know what the owner thinks it's worth before the valuation. That should be illegal, for starters. That should be illegal, because what has it got? That's just purely to set up a price pitch. It's got, you don't need to know what the owner thinks it's worth prior. And if they don't find out before booking the valuation, that's one of the first things they want to know before they give the price on the valuation. So they would be my two ways that we would fix it, which will never happen.
Well, in Scotland, they do that. In Scotland, the surveyor has to give the price, and agents can ask for offers in excess of that price, which they do a lot of times. But yeah, that's taken completely out of the equation. So it's not part of the pitch, because, as we all know, agents that aren't as confident in their abilities and their pitch, they find the easiest way to get that instruction is overprice and cheap fees, don't they?
Yeah. And so I know you're quite big on trying to make the process simpler and more secure for sellers, and you're very big into Gazelle and your reservation agreements, and you're often looking for new ways to try and improve the process. So do you think, my personal opinion on Ian's, I think the second one is unenforceable and would just the opportunity for agents to pitch in the room and to find out about price would just make that really difficult. I think the first one is probably more likely, and I think they should bring something like that in. It would make everyone's life a lot easier. But what's the best thing that you've come across in terms of trying to set up trying to set up sellers to make the process a little bit easier? And what are some of the sort of challenges that you've overcome to try and implement that into Cooper Adams?
So I think there's three things that all sellers need to do before they launch their property to market. One is to get their mortgage all set up as much as they can without doing the application form, because that application form requires the address and the price. But to get that completely set up so they're ready to press the go on it. Two, to have an inquiries ready contract pack ready. So the TA forms, all of their boiler servicing, but also their solicitor to go through it. And if they were going to raise standard inquiries on that contract pack, to make sure the answers are in there. So that's ready before launch, because a day after launch, in theory, you could get an acceptable offer and then you can send that contract out straight away. Obviously, you can't do searches on it because they like searches to be fresh, and if it takes a couple of months to sell the property, those searches will be out of date. But those two things, and then obviously getting the reservation agreement ready and knowing up front that the seller wants the reservation agreement, so the agent can put that on the details, can mention it at all the viewings, and to get the buyer engaged in what it all means. Those three things, I think, would cut through a lot of the treacle.
And how have you found that received with sellers when you're going through that with them?
So with reservation agreements, we've been doing them 5 years, and to start with, probably only about 5-10% of our properties had reservation agreements. Our sales had reservation agreements on them, and now it's about 90%. So I would like the same, not in 5 years' time, but in the next few years. Of at the moment, the sellers that have got an inquiries ready contract pack ready is very, very small, but I want to ramp it up with my team and and our clients, that they should be doing that. I would like in a few years' time for 90% of our clients to have that ready as well. And obviously the mortgage part of it. So, but things take a while because the team aren't always as much on board as you, the business owner, when you're excited and passionate about it and think it's easy to do this. And then, they're quite not on board, but that's my motive.
Change is hard, isn't it? To implement it through the layers. You think how difficult it is to do it in a medium-sized business or even a small business, or sometimes even with your wife, if you wanted to change something. It's very difficult to do for a whole industry. It's trying to bring that. But well, I think what you've done with the reservation agreements within your company is phenomenal. I would love to have it at that level across Avocado. It's more like the first stage that you mentioned, sort of 5 to 10. I did notice that Brian had shared a story where the whole chain recently, for the first time ever, was full reservation agreement chain, which you just look at that chain and you just think such a more secure, logical place for that chain to be. Everyone knows where they stand. Everyone's the same level of commitment. I mean, what a nicer place for the agents, for the solicitors, for the mortgage advisors, the removal people. Everyone just feels a bit more concrete with that chain, I would have thought.
Definitely. And there will be a day where they're mandatory. And that would mean that people feel much more secure. That at the moment we're excited when contracts exchange, but we should be equally as excited as when we've got a reservation agreement in place, because that is the forerunner to exchanging contracts, isn't it? Really, it makes it more definite.
I did one on my house sale recently, and I wasn't overly excited when we had the sales offer accepted on our house, but when we got the agreement in, it was like, and that's because I've got, detailed knowledge of the process and how many do fall through and how easy it is for a sale to fall through. So actually having that with the timescale involved as well was a big weight off my shoulders. And I think I agree with you. I think they should be mandatory, and it would make our job of getting them signed a lot easier if they were mandatory, because quite often what we're finding with our reservation agreements, and I'm very similar to Ian in terms of numbers and our stage with them, is that buyers are a little bit skeptical about them because the solicitors will advise them, oh, you don't need to sign that. Their parents, if they're young first-time buyers, will say, well, we've never heard of this. And there is still that, even though it's recommended by the government and, it secures everything, there is still a certain cautiousness with buyers is, one of the things that we found. How have you found how it's been received by buyers?
So at the beginning of our journey, we would leave the reservation agreements till they've instructed solicitors. And then by that stage, then they're engaging their solicitors. They're asking their solicitors their opinion on it. The solicitors haven't got the time and the inclination to read through the reservation. So a lot of solicitors just say, oh, don't bother. I haven't really heard of it. Don't bother with it. So we now switch it to much earlier on. So we speak about it with the sellers. On our agreement with our sellers, we ask them, are they happy for their buyer to pull out on a whim, or would they like a reservation agreement? So most of them are on board straight away. They get it. They understand it. Sorry, I need to mute my phone, don't I? Did you hear that notification?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. So the sellers are on board, and then as it's on the details, and as we talk about it at the viewing, the buyers understand it and they know it's part of our process. So we don't let it get to the stage where they're asking their solicitor about it, because when they make an offer, the offer is not agreed at all. We don't take it off marketing or anything like that until the reservation agreement is signed. So we don't say your offer's been accepted until they've signed it, because if they feel that that it's accepted and then they've got to sign it, a lot of them say, actually, I don't know if I want to sign it anymore because my offer's accepted, don't need to. So we make that all part of it, and it makes it much easier. And they want to sign it quickly then. So please send it through to me. I want to sign it, because they can sign it and get it sent back within 10 minutes. So so that was quite a big change for us, that from the early days to now.
Yeah, and I can see the advantage of that, because people, when they're buying a house, want it off the market. So that's great. Thanks very much for sharing that, Shaun, because I can see the difference it's made in your business, and quite rightly, you're proud of those stats. We've talked about it in the past. Have you ever looked into anything in terms of sort of pre-market surveys or anything like that to try and take it another step?
Yeah, so I have done, and but it didn't really get anywhere with my team. I think when it's your team, they've really got to buy into it themselves, haven't they?
Yeah.
And I think for them, it's maybe another barrier, that sellers maybe worry, oh, more expense. I've got to do the reservation agreement. I've got to do this. I've got to do the other. And I've got to have a survey done on my property. But I think that will definitely come. And I think when, say, developers have refurbished a property and they think it's absolutely amazing, why not have a fresh MOT on it and have a clean survey on it? And if the surveyor picks up something quite small, the developer will get that done, won't they?
Hmm.
So I think it's a great idea. I think some people will be worried, some sellers will be worried, oh my God, what's going to come up, And then obviously if anything comes up on that, then under material information, we've got to let the buyer know. So if they say this has come up, I'm not prepared to get the new roof done, then it's maybe they feel that if the buyer has the survey done and they're down the line further on and they renegotiate the price, that it's easier. I don't know.
Yeah,
But yeah.
we've done it quite a few times in the last sort of 18 months in some of the areas where you've got sort of 40, 45 plus year old houses, and sellers have been quite receptive to, when they understand the sort of reasoning behind it, that it could be that you've got the buyer and then the buyer does the survey and you've done all of this process and you lose your dream home because you realize there's 17 grand's worth of work to do on the roof or something like that. It's better to kind of find out about it now for a couple of £100 than it is to sort of have that emotional damage down the line. But it's 1% of people that are doing it, if not less, when discussed. But I do think it would make a big difference to the industry for sure.
Yeah. And also with the reservation agreement, that they cannot pull out because of stuff they already know when they make the offer. So if on viewings it's pointed out that the garage, that door, it needs attention because the runners are all rusty and that sort of thing, and they know that, then they can't say later on down the line, actually, I'm going to pull out because the garage door's rusty. So if they had a copy of the survey at the time of making an offer, then it's all out there, transparent. So they can't say, oh, this has come up and I didn't know about it, because they knew about it when they made the offer. So it'd make the reservation agreement even stronger by them having sight of that survey, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Shaun, shifting the conversation a little bit, because a lot of the noise that you've been making recently, on the socials, and I think there's a Facebook group now, and I've seen obviously a few sort of industry press articles as well, has been around Rightmove and trying to kind of almost be a bit of an industry champion to try and control what's going on with Rightmove a little bit. And estate agents and Rightmove have this sort of love-hate relationship, should we call it? Some very much one direction or the other. But pricing has been a real kind of hot topic for estate agents with Rightmove, because there is an element of, most of the industry feel it's something that we have to have because of the public's love for Rightmove, which I think is fair. I do think the country and the public have a real soft spot for Rightmove. We can see that from the traffic, we can see it from its interaction. But from an agency point of view, sometimes we kind of feel that we're a little bit over a barrel and they've kind of got us by the short and curlies, and it's a bit of a difficult place to be. And from the industry that I'm operating in, or the section of the industry, I'm now having a lot of conversations with small business owners that are looking to potentially go self-employed. And normally when I speak to them, I say, why? And they just say, the bills, the Rightmove bill, is just so out of control now that it just doesn't make sense to have my own brand on the high street. So can you just sort of talk to us about what you've been doing for the industry positively over the last sort of couple of weeks and months, if possible?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, so if I get this straight though, Rightmove are decent. They're a good website. They do what they say on the tin, and they do serve up properties and quickly. And so yeah, I've got no problem at all with what they do. And yeah, they're the number one, and they're the best at that. But it's just this disparity in fees between the corporates and the small independents, and that gap is getting wider. And I think originally the corporates were given a good deal because they controlled most of the UK market. And if the corporates were on a portal, then the independents would follow them. So they were given a cracking deal to get the independents all to come over to it, and that worked. I think that's changed now. I don't think the corporates are controlling the UK, board count and that sort of thing, market share. But Rightmove normally put their fees out every year, and it's always quite high. It's always around 10%, which is high. And this year, mine went up 18%, which I thought was horrendous. I think I know the reason why they've gone up so high. And because of this, I thought this can't be right. Have they got a monopoly? What is classed as a monopoly? The Competition and Markets Authority class 40% as a monopoly. They've got 80% of the market. And they haven't got a monopoly where they're 100%, but they control most of it. Clients expect you to be on Rightmove, so you're on Rightmove. And Rightmove play agents off against each other, with their smoke and mirrors marketing and that sort of thing. So 18% increase was much too much. So I looked into it, and I've now created a template letter. I've written to the Competition and Markets Authority, and a lot of other agents have joined in because enough's enough. We can't have this. We are paying nearly £2,000 per month per office, and I've been told that some of the big corporates are paying little over £125 per office per month, which is a massive difference. And I understand that the corporates should get a good discount, or any large agents should get a good discount, because they're bringing a lot of branches to Rightmove. But the difference between £125 and £2,000, the independent agents are paying for the corporates to be on Rightmove, because Rightmove can't do it for £125. They can't. So that's it.
That's crazy.
So you mentioned that you think why the 18% increase. Is that the reason that we're subsidising the corporates?
No, so I think the reason why it's gone up so high this year is because, as we know, Murdoch's group made an offer to buy Rightmove. They made 3 offers. Rightmove turned them down. They aren't allowed to keep making offers because it disrupts the city too much.
Yeah.
So they have to step back. They're not allowed to make their next offer for a certain amount of months. I don't know exactly what it is. So in the meantime, I believe that Rightmove are now fattening up to look for a better offer. So I think they've got rid of some staff. They are going to agents and saying your fees are going up a lot. I've heard they went to a corporate agent recently, and normally they go out for something to eat, they have a few drinks, and they bash out a deal there and then at the dinner table with the corporate agents. This time they went and they said, our hands are tied. This is what your fees are going up by, and unfortunately we can't negotiate. So they're being much, much stronger on getting fees up to fatten the cow, or whatever the expression is, ready for the next offer. And all businesses, if they want to sell, they need to show their turnover to be higher, or profits to be higher, don't they, to sell at the best price. So that's what I believe, the 18%.
So have you heard anything from the CMA since your letters, or what, as a group of agents, can we do?
Bless you. So yeah, come to me. The letters on my the template letter is on my Facebook site. I've also got a website, which I can't remember the address for now, but I can give it to you to put up on the screen or whatever. Some agents are worried that if they make a complaint about Rightmove, that Rightmove are going to say, actually, we're going to dissolve our contract. They're not allowed to do that at all. That is really bad business, and the CMA would jump on them and put an injunction on them straight away to do that. So don't worry. And I'm not saying that Rightmove are bad. I'm just saying that I don't agree with the fee increases and the gap. So agents can write to the CMA. I've also got a secure form for agents to put in where they are, what they're paying, have they got a fee increase, so we can look at the whole of the UK and what agents' fees are going up to. So there's more transparency within this. I'm also getting some help from a legal company, which I can't really talk about, that are looking into the exact reasons why Rightmove is doing this, and there's going to be a big thing on that. But I've signed an NDA, so I can't go into detail on that.
We'll get you on afterwards.
It's all really serious stuff then, if there's NDAs involved, legal companies. And what are you hoping to achieve end result?
Fairness, really. I'm happy to pay Rightmove more than Zoopla and On the Market. They're worth a lot more than them. They give a good lot of leads. If every agent came off Rightmove tomorrow and went on to Zoopla and Zoopla was number one, the public would all go there. We all know that. They only go there because they're the number one. In theory, portals should be free for agents and just have adverts on there, and the advertiser would pay to go on there. But that's not happening. But so I think by writing to this CMA, because the CMA will act more the more letters they get. I had a petition, but a petition, really anyone can sign it, and the CMA don't care if there's 1,000 signatures on it or 10,000. So writing to the CMA with a letter template and also sharing the fees with my form.
Have you had any communication from anyone at senior at Rightmove since?
No, they're just trying to push me away and put their heads in the sand. I asked while the investigation was going along, could they freeze my fees, and they said no. So my account manager, I'm not dealing with anymore. I've been passed over to the South of England account manager, and she takes a month to reply to me.
For $2,000 an office.
Yeah. So our fees gone up from 50 grand a year to 60 grand a year for a portal.
I like Rightmove. I'm a fan of Rightmove, and I think that the customer experience from Rightmove's perspective, I know we're the customer, but really the buyers and sellers are customers that see it. And
consumer.
Yeah, the consumer experience on Rightmove is very, very good. And one of the reasons is because all of the properties are on there. And I think the CMA and the monopoly, if consumers had to go on various different portals to find all of the properties, that would make the experience more difficult. So I can see the power of Rightmove, but that disparity between the independent and the corporate contracts, I am shocked by that. I'm sure there's a lot of listeners here that will not be able to believe their ears when they're hearing that sort of thing. And how confident are you that the disparity is as large as you've said there?
Well, I haven't got anything in paper because the person that works for the largest agent in the UK doesn't want to print something out for me, which I can understand. And obviously, if the largest agent in the UK is Connells Group with 1,200 branches, obviously the smaller the agent is, the higher the fees. So but I know that any EXP will get a big discount on their fees, and you can see that from their capping costs. And they're on the 3 portals, so the capping costs pay for the training, the CRM, the portal costs, and if you divide that out, you can work out rough prices. But yeah, and there's stuff in between.
And the CMA, you presumably have done a bit of research into this. What are their options if they decide that Rightmove are abusing their position of power?
Well, the same options as they put on the energy companies. So the energy companies have price caps, don't they? Because the energy companies, they can't just put whatever price they want on it. They haven't even got a monopoly, have they? The energy companies. There's lots to choose from, but they're price capped. So And the CMA, it depends on their workload. They are probably going to work harder for the consumer before businesses, so they may push our complaints further down the list. And I don't know what resources they've got at the moment, really, the CMA.
Rightmove, I'm not going to want this going on if they are planning a sale, are they?
No, because it devalue them, wouldn't it? If there's a price cap, if their price cap is half, then what's it going to do to their profits? I mean, their profits are 70%. They're one of the highest profit-making companies in the FTSE. I think even Tesco's, like the biggest UK supermarket, their profits are about 6%. So I think, yeah.
I think that's, like you said, fairness is what we're looking for here. And the difference in a corporate branch to an independent branch, that level is just, I understand if you've got multiple branches, you might get a 20% discount or something like that.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Somewhere between 20 and 0% discount seems sort of understanding. It's the sort of thing that you would expect if you were multi-pack buying anywhere, really.
Yeah.
But that difference, what we're talking about there, 20 times almost, is just, it's outrageous. And what it also does for the industry is it makes it even more challenging, from a P&L point of view, because we're talking about, a member of staff per branch different, in reality, at least a part-time member of staff different. You put it over three branch outfit, and that's a proper high-level member of staff that you can't put into that business that the corporate can because of the costings, and that becomes unfair, competitively unfair, doesn't it? Which is what I think you're trying to sort of raise the point by. I have said this on this podcast before, and I do think there are some things that agents with Rightmove can do, because I do think the public is a huge fan of Rightmove, but I do think we have to try and help ourselves a little bit. And as an industry, we don't help ourselves. We are magpies, and I'm talking broadly here. But the features that Rightmove offer estate agents, and the package where they try and put a package together which is basic and a B package together which looks like this optimized pack or this optimization pack, which they dress up as like this massive discount of this, that, and the other. I think that's where estate agents have to get a little bit better at trying to create what, in the marketing world, anywhere you look, anywhere, at the highest level, is building your own list and building your own database. And we're too lazy as agents. We let Rightmove build our database, and that's wrong for me. I think that's something we've got to do more of. If I could snap my fingers today and say that all estate agents up and down the country cancel premium listings, featured listings, valuations alerts, because they just don't need them. Banners, on the search pop where no one even looks at the banner because they're typing in their categories. We have to stop being magpies for these features that we don't need. And I passionately believe that, because I've seen both sides of the story. I was at a 10-branch independent company, a big independent company, 50% of the officers were market leaders, 100+ staff. I've seen the Rightmove bill for those, and I've seen the feature packs that we were sold on from an optimization point of view, and we had them all. But then since launching my own business, nearly 5 years old, we've never used anything but the basic level subscription. We've never paid for a feature, no premium listing, no feature, no valuation alerts, and we've never needed it, because it's allowed us to put that money into our own marketing and building our own database. And I wish agents would do that. I really do, because I think that would make a big difference. I'm not saying it helps this conversation, but I think...
No, I agree. Agents rely on it too much, and then they moan about it. But rather than pushing inquiries back to their own website or their own social media, they're putting links out on properties, Rightmove links. If you go into Tesco's, you wouldn't see adverts for Sainsbury's properties alongside Sainsbury's apples alongside Tesco's apples. But by putting a link out to Rightmove, you're pushing people to your property on that link, and then they go off and they might, be viewing other properties through other agents. So, and they're not looking at your own website and your own marketing and why they should maybe appoint you.
and
Yeah.
retargeting and all the rest of it that goes with it. This sort of industry champion that you're doing here, Shaun, in this campaign feels very different from what you've said to previous campaigns, particularly the one around COVID, where Rightmove made a fairly big faux pas with their fees. There was a big drive for agents to leave Rightmove. This has a very different feel to it, doesn't it? Because you started the conversation by saying, I like Rightmove. It's a very useful tool, but actually what we're talking about here is fairness, not, we don't want to use them and we're creating this big barrier, but actually we want a bit of fairness, which is exactly what the CMA are there for, right?
Yeah, for me, it's about what's ethically right. And whether it's in my business, whether it's with my suppliers, that's what life should be about, shouldn't it? And that's why when I go back to reservation agreements are ethically right. Why should someone be able to pull out of buying a property a day before exchange of contracts and messing the whole chain up and messing people's lives up, and people get really upset over it? It's awful. And I think Rightmove needs to be more ethically right.
It goes right back to your first answer, actually, Shaun. To you describe world class real estate as honesty,
Yeah.
and that the honesty. When there is that sort of disparity in fees, there is no honesty in players. There is no transparency.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, do you remember years ago the newspapers used to have rate cards and they say that this is, and we can't deviate from that. Can you imagine Rightmove saying this is what you'd pay if you had 10 branches, this is what you'd pay if you had, 100 properties per branch, whatever. It's not like that. And there's no rhyme or reasoning to how they arrive at that cost for, and some agents have got different branches in different areas and they're all priced completely differently and no one knows why. And Rightmove do because they can get away with it. This is why they charge so much. And they're a business. I get that. They need to make decent money, and every business wants to make as much profit as they can, but not when it's totally unfair and this massive gap.
Do we think the pricing strategy should be reviewed and looked at? And obviously, what we're looking at, if I always look at Rightmove and then I look at Auto Trader as a kind of this is how
they'll be the next ones.
And I think CMA have already, I think a few years ago, they already did something with Auto Trader. But with Auto Trader, obviously, I know the public can use it, but there is an element of you pay for an advert per car. And I don't know whether, going back to what we were talking about of overvaluing and things like that, but if agents paid per listing and then just had an invoice each month per listing, it feels like it would be a fairer way to do it. And I don't know, then people might say, well, my average fee's 1,100 and my average fee's 27 grand or whatever, because someone's in London and someone's in thingy. I know it becomes messy, but in a kind of, it feels like volume versus branch is a sort of more balanced way of trying to look at it. And it also for the public becomes a little bit better as well, because if you know that you're paying per listing, you're not going to have that MD at the top saying, list everything, get boards everywhere, overvalue, lock them in for 4 months. And I know the agents around that do that, that have got the MDs that are just, it's a numbers game, numbers. That whole sort of marketing strategy changes if you're got a cost per listing. And as an independent business owner, you would look at it and go, right, I know that if we've got 25 on the market, that's the sweet spot. And if we go over that, and we have to pay over that, and they're not going in the pipeline, then there's a staff training issue that we kind of, would look at. But also it means that the areas are competitive. There probably have to be some sort of regional rate per property. And they actually do that anyway with the featured listing and the valuation alerts. They're done based on average house price, because you could have one at 250 and one at 650 depending on the average fee or the average house price in the area anyway. So that would be a better way. I mean, they'd have to employ a new accountant team, I would imagine, to sort the invoicing out, but that's not our problem.
No, it would be much more transparent, wouldn't it? Definitely. And I think, and it maybe would stop more agents overvaluing it and just having it on their books for 6 months when they're paying a monthly cost for that property to be on Rightmove. Because I think at the moment, when an agent takes on a property that's overpriced and it's on the market forever, it's not really costing them anymore, is it? Because once they've done the work to launch the property, especially if they're not getting any viewings on it, then they're not even having to pay staff to go out and do viewings on it. But it's mad, yeah.
That's the pricing model of street. They pay you pay street CRM per property, and I spoke to Heather about this, quite early on, and her logic was we want to encourage agents onto our platform who are valuing properties right, who are turning properties into sold subject to contract, because we think that's good business and good for the public. And I don't think I'm breaking any confidences by having that conversation. I'm sure she's had it with many people, but that would make a lot of sense as an industry, and it would also combat some of those issues that we talked about right at the start.
Yeah. And I know street I have a minimum price, don't they? So so you can't have an agent go on there with just 2 properties and yeah. But
there we go. We've solved that in 50 minutes. Just need someone to sort it out now.
But their fee model at the moment that they're getting away with works best for Rightmove and Rightmove only. So they're going to carry on doing that while they can.
Yeah, it's down to the agents who are their clients to do something about it. And that's why I respect what you've done, Shaun, because you've kind of put your head above the parapet, which a lot of people will see as the risky thing to do, because Rightmove's such a big animal that no one wants their hammer coming down on them. But I think as a group, we all know that at some point, and Rightmove will know this as well, at some point, the monopoly or the level of agents that list with Rightmove will get to a percentage where it's no longer as important as people think. We've seen it with the newspaper. That will happen at some point, but agents have to do more for themselves to build their own business. It still blows my mind when I look at a Facebook group and see a seller post the link for Rightmove for their property and say, my house is up for sale, blah, 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 if anyone's interested, and there's the Rightmove link. And you just think, as agents, we've got to do more to try and kind of market our own brands a little bit and build our own databases. Well done for what you're doing. What do you see as the next step in an ideal world, Shaun?
Well, so the CMA, they write back and they confirm receipt of your letter, and then you've just got to wait, really. So I've got to wait to see what happens there. But on the other side, where I've signed the NDA, there should be more news in the summer about exactly what the plans, and that should be out in the open. So that'd be the exciting time. On the technology side of things, I think that it won't be too long before AI will replace portals, where you will say to AI, I'm looking for a 4-bedroom house up to 650 in this area. AI will then go out and scrape the agent's own individual sites and come back to you saying, I've got these properties. You say, I quite like to view those 2:00 on Saturday. And then that AI will go and book the appointments with the agent and come back to you and have that done. So I think it will come away from portals, because the AI will better go out to scrape those agent sites.
Yeah, I think voice will be the way that this will happen. I think I don't disagree with you at all. The timescale on that, I don't know, but I ask Alexa to do everything, but I can't ask Alexa to create me a short list of properties yet. And at some point I will be able to. And
yes,
that's when Alexa, can you email me all the 650 houses that are for sale in Crowthorne that have got 4 bedrooms and a double garage? Yes, Ian, I've just sent you the email. Like that. That's the future. It's as simple as that.
And also, you're better ask Alexa to email all the agents in that area saying that's what you're looking for. So if something's coming up, to let you know before it hits their website.
I've got 3 Alexas in my house, and they're all going mental because I'm saying Alexa. I could hear them out the door.
I was laughing at your Alexa voice, to be fair, Ian.
Always be polite, Mark, to AI and say please and thank you, because we just don't know what's around the corner. That's one thing I've learned. The last question, and this is not loaded. I don't know the answer to this. Are you getting any support by Property Mark, are you getting any support? I don't know if you're part of the guild or FIA or any of these.
Yeah.
Are you
So
getting any support there?
good question. So I went to see Nathan Emerson in Westminster last week and asked what Property Mark's stance on it is. The difficulty is that Rightmove do support Property Mark, and they are the main sponsor to some of their events. Now, Property Mark don't just do that for the money, but it allows their members to go to their events for free. So they don't really want to start mouthing Rightmove too much when Rightmove are not just giving them money, but they're helping the members go along to the conferences and that sort of thing. So I completely understand that, you know. Property Mark, I think, in the future would like to. So they've just announced that they are going to start bulk buying certain things, bulk buying professional indemnity insurance and that sort of thing, which will help its members. So maybe there'll be a day where they better bulk buy portal costs. So that's Property Mark. The Guild. So Ian is very interested in supporting me, and he is going to conjure up his members to jump on board, and hopefully, if they're interested, to write to the CMA using my template letter. So yeah, there's a lot of agents out there. The only negativity that I've got back from agents are the agents that work for the big names, because they are getting Rightmove at cheap prices, so they don't really understand the plight of the independent agent, you know. So, but it's good.
I'm disappointed in Property Mark there. You obviously are having the conversations. I'm not, and I can get off the fence there. I think that's a joke, personally, because
then
pay a 60 quid ticket, but let's fix the problem. That's a cop out for me.
I agree. But do you know what I thought when you said that? And I can understand the stance on it, but like so many things with Property Mark, it's like chocolate fireguard. What is, like, genuinely, what is the point? Like, they have the potential to be a brand that the consumer understands. They're the one in the position that they could make a difference for proper qualified agents. And I've got the qualifications, but I just think they're fucking useless.
That is a joke. Like, that's such a big cop out and such a pointless way of saying no. We're influenced by the sponsorship money more than we are by the needs of who we're meant to be looking after. I think if there's anyone listening and they're part of Property Mark, you've got to do something about that, because that's not acceptable. It makes me want to get involved with Property Mark and be part of the board, because I just think you got to stop. You just got to get off the fence with it and actually start doing something. Like, it's either you're there for your ego or you're there to actually do something. It's one or the other.
Property Mark, so they don't represent businesses; they only represent individuals. And there are quite a lot of individual members of Property Mark that do work for corporate agents, so they're not just there for independent agents. But yeah, hopefully with some noise about it, my meeting with them, maybe they might come away from the greedy, unethical portals. You know, maybe they're going to think about that next time they go out for sponsorship.
Yeah. Well, really insightful, Shaun, and like I say, well done for what you did.
Thank you.
Because I think it will have an impact. It took someone to step outside of the crowd and do something different, and hopefully people will follow you in that kind of new path that you're trying to create. I know you've got the support of me and Mark, the podcast, obviously. So if we can do anything or can help in any way, or the people listening that want to get involved and support and help in any way, obviously we'll put the Facebook group in the show notes. I think we'll try and do that, and anything else that, you know, we can do to help, really.
Lovely. Thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Shaun. And I think from the independents, thank you for, you know, putting your head above the parapet. That was a, you know, a ballsy move. So yeah, really appreciate it, and we'll support in any way we can. Thanks very much.
If things work out, all independents should get a refund on some of the massive fees they've been paying for the last 10 years.
Like an insurance claim. You see,
yeah.
Are you an estate agent who's been paying, you know, you've
KPI.
That's an idea.
Yeah. Might change the game a little bit. Thanks, Shaun. Brilliant
Okay.
episode. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.
A massive thank you once again to Shaun Adams from Cooper Adams for joining us today. Ian, I suppose almost exactly as I expected. Loads of value in the early part from Shaun, and you can see how passionate he is about the industry when he talks about that. But some real surprising stats on Rightmove, and also I think prior to talking to him, because I've not spoken to him for a little while, because I didn't go to the last mastermind. But actually, I thought he was gonna start by bashing Rightmove, and that's not what this is about.
No. Shaun reminds me a lot of my business partner Mike, because what those types of personalities are fantastic at is understanding the rules. What are the rules? And then this is the game that I'm playing inside those rules, rather than just, if we use a football analogy, just grabbing the ball and running. They want to know what's the tactics, what's the rules, what can I and can't I do? And then that's the game that I'm playing. And Shaun is very much like that. And I think what he's trying to do is say, look, hang on a minute. I think this is stepped outside of the rules, and I don't think this is the game that we're playing. And I think someone's effectively taking the piss out of me because I'm not as big as someone down the road. And in a kind of rather than taking a victim mentality to it, he's gone, no, I'm not going to be bullied, and I'm going to do something about it. And that, I've just got immense respect for. And I think that's where people like me and you, maybe we're a bit more in the hamster wheel. We're a bit more kind of new business, doing the fun stuff. We're excited we spoke at the beginning about the commissions, and we just love what we're doing. But sometimes we kind of don't open our eyes to the analytics of the kind of the rules of the game and go, hang on a minute, that's not right. And Shaun does. And I think that's what you can see in this episode. But there's a place for us as agents to now actually go, let's stop this. Let's make fairness the play with Rightmove.
And he mentioned it, didn't he? I think the fear from all estate agents has been, and I've, thought about, these conversations, particularly when it was going on around COVID and there was this big say no to Rightmove campaign or whatever it was. I always worried about Rightmove's reaction to that, because my opinion is if Rightmove kick you off the website, you've got a big problem. But actually, as Shaun quite rightly pointed out, if they do that, then that's against the CMA rules, and therefore you've got that security of knowing that actually they're not allowed to do that. That's against, as you said, he's gone. He's established the rules. These are the rules. They can't break those rules. So actually, let's try and do it in a very professional, not slagging off, not, calling names or anything like that, in a very professional manner. We've got this letter, we've got this template. These are the steps that you need to take if you feel like it is unfair, which clearly, if there is that disparity, it is unfair, right?
Yeah, I think it's, well, we know it's unfair. It's now, can we do something about it? Is the key thing. There's a lot going on globally, politically, economically, at different scales, where it feels like fairness is becoming a bigger battle with the higher powers or the bigger places, with what's going on everywhere. And I think this is our mini battle, which makes a big difference to estate agents' survival, competitive fairness, in the money that they can invest into their marketing or to their training or staff development or recruitment, improving the industry for the public as well. This is what that money is being sliced off to do. And I think, there's a place for us as a group to now try and, make it feel a bit more balanced, a bit more even. I mean, I've spoke about profit margins, and, estate agents just don't sit outside of, at the best level, 20-25% profit margins. They don't. Most of them sit inside 10%. And you look at Rightmove statistics and the profit margins that they make. I understand that, the people at the top of the table want to make more profit. That is business. But you've also got to remember who your customers are. And if you push too far, then, like the newspapers did, if you push too far, they'll pull the plug on you and you have no business at all. And as estate agents, we can do that to Rightmove, regardless of what the public think. If the public are aware that only 70% of the properties are on there, 50% of the properties on, they'll stop using it.
Yeah. And that's but to get the groundswell of people to do that, I think is a step too far. The market that we operate in is too disjointed. There is too much for agents. So I think actually doing it in this sort of way, by saying actually, we want fairness. You've got a good website, but we want fairness, I think is probably more likely. It would be very helpful. And, maybe we got a bit ranty there, but it would be very helpful if there was some serious organisation like Property Mark that would get on board and help agents with something like this.
Yeah, and that winds me up a little bit, and I'll be careful now that we're kind of Shaun's offline what we say here. But I do think with Property Mark that I think they're really, really struggling in the current and modern and future estate agency world. The people that are in it for the next 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, they're struggling to have a respectable brand and reputation with us. I include myself in that. If I'm honest, I don't really see the point in them.
Yeah.
I'll go as far as saying that. And I think if they want to have a point and they want to be, if they want to be our champion, they want to be an outfit where we can see a point with them. We do have a level of respect for them, and they are going to impact from a membership way. As a leader at the top, that they want to have a community. That's the word I'm looking for. Then they need to be the community champion. And, what Shaun said there is really disappointing, because that's the opposite of that. That's a fear factor. That's putting your head back, below the parapet rather than above. And that's not what they're there to do, in my opinion. Whether they work for the agent or the business, if you look at their website, they'll mention both estate agents, businesses, they're there for the industry. Let's be honest. That's what they said they're there for. Do something for the industry.
Yeah, I think that's what it's almost like we took their money, so we can't criticize them. That's how it feels. I described them as a chocolate five-yard. My mum was part of the exec or whatever for quite some years, and has since stepped away from it. I don't really now see the role in the industry. We need. I believe we need more regulation. I believe that brand has the potential to actually mean something to consumers. I think they've probably taken some positive steps with the brand and people that got involved in that. But something like this there is potential to, as you say, really, really, help the industry. And that's what we're talking about. I can understand if they work for members rather than agents, but how many of the members' fees are paid by businesses? And all that sort of thing. There's a real opportunity here, and I hope that somebody there listens to this and brings it up as a conversation, because it would be really great to see Property Mark get behind Shaun and throw some support behind him, because I think it's there's, like I said, it's done in a very professional manner. He's very eloquent. He's got a very good point if that disparity does exist, and let's try as an industry to try and flush it out and try and do something about it.
Yeah, I think there's some heads of those communities. You've got Property Mark, you've got the Property Academy with big conferences and awards, and Peter Knight and his team have obviously got some influence there. With Rightmove, I know they changed their headline sponsor to On the Market recently. You've got RAN, you've got the FIA, you've got the Guild, all of these different places where you've got a real big community of estate agents, and you've got influence at a higher level.
Yeah.
If Shaun's prepared to do that, then some of those people will make a big weighty difference if they join Shaun in that fight a little bit. And who cares about your sponsorship? Your couple of grand in the bigger scale makes no difference. We're talking about the difference of people. If from a PR stunt, if one of those did that, I guarantee they double their memberships overnight, because the estate agents go, that's my team.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about it, and we're gonna finish very soon, because this has turned into quite a long episode. But we talk about knowing your niche and not trying to appeal to everybody, and that is an opportunity. But again, like like Shaun sticking his head above the parapet. It's got to take a decision that, might be a little bit bold, but then you will find your community and you will create a community by, doing something like that. So yeah, I hope somebody listening takes some action on that. And a massive thank you once again to Shaun for joining us. Really good episode. Some really, powerful takeaways. And, if you have listened right through, please go to the show notes, click the links, and get involved in this campaign. I'm Mark Worrall. He's in Macbeth. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again next week.